Hi there. I'm Venus. My parents told me I didn't belong at Thanksgiving. Not because I did something wrong, because I was a burden. What they didn't say out loud was even worse. They used my silence, my loyalty, to try and take everything I had. I was about to sign over the house, a gift, just to feel accepted. But then I found out what they were really planning behind my back. Why would your own family go this far? And what do you do when the people who raised you become the ones you need protection from? Stick around. You're going to want to hear this. I stood in the kitchen staring at the foil-covered dish on the counter, steam still clinging beneath the lid. It was a simple sweet potato casserole, brown sugar, cinnamon, marshmallows, the kind Mom used to make before everything changed. I had no idea if anyone would eat it. Honestly, I didn't know if I'd be allowed past the front door. Driving through Tacoma that morning, the fog hugged the road like it didn't want to let go. Streets shimmered with leftover rain, yellow and crimson leaves mashed into the pavement like forgotten stories. Thanksgiving had always meant warmth, food, voices overlapping, before Diana. Now, it just meant obligation. When I pulled into the driveway, I already sensed it. The wrongness. No one was waiting. No sounds of laughter or plates clinking inside. I grabbed the dish and climbed the porch stairs. The door opened before I could knock. Diana. She leaned against the frame, arms crossed, her lips curling just enough to pretend it was a smile. You weren't invited, Venus? My hands tightened on the casserole dish. It's Thanksgiving! She raised an eyebrow. Exactly, for family. I looked past her. Dad was standing in the hallway pretending to read something in his hand. I locked eyes with him, my heart pounding, and waited. I needed just one word, one signal. Diana's voice sliced in again, low and sharp. You're a burden, Venus. You always have been. Mom babied you, but she's not here anymore. I stepped forward, voice shaking but steady. I brought food. She didn't budge. We don't need you to play hero once a year. You don't belong here. And then finally, Dad looked up, but not at me. Maybe another time, sweetheart. The door clicked shut. I stood there, dish still in my hands, before turning back to the car. The cold hit harder than the rain. I didn't cry, not right away. I drove in silence, headlights cutting through the wet dusk. The house was empty when I got home, except for the humming of the heater and the soft purring of Oliver, my cat. I set the dish on the kitchen table and collapsed into the nearest chair. It wasn't just a holiday they shut me out of. It was history. My mother's recipes. My time caring for Dad when his knees gave out, selling off my jewelry to help him cover bills after retirement. None of it mattered now. My silence had earned me exile. My phone buzzed. Clarice, you okay? I heard. I stared at the screen, fingers trembling. They said I don't belong. I stared at Clarice's message until the screen dimmed. It took me almost a full minute to reply. My thumbs hovered, then typed. They said I don't belong. Seconds later, she called. Venus, are you at home? Yes. I'm picking you up. Nina's cooking tonight. She made roast chicken. You know she won't take no for an answer. I opened my mouth to say I wasn't in the mood, but stopped. Clarice had been in my corner since we were 12. She knew when I needed saving before I did. Okay, I said, softer than I meant. By the time we pulled up to Nina's cozy brownstone, the streetlights were flickering on. The chill in the air hadn't softened, but the warmth from the windows spilled onto the sidewalk like a welcome. Inside, everything smelled like rosemary and garlic and cinnamon rolls. Nina, wrapped in a sweater 3 sizes too big, smiled and opened her arms. Take strength to show up, baby. You've got more than most. I felt it, the shift. Something cracking open, even if just a little. Dinner wasn't fancy, but it was real. Comfort food, low lights, soft jazz in the background. Clarice handed me a glass of wine. Nina patted my hand, and somewhere between bites of mashed potatoes and polite laughter, the dam broke. I said it, out loud. They told me I was a burden. The room hushed. Clarice reached across the table and squeezed my wrist. Nina sat back, fork down. Honey, a gift isn't a gift when people expect it like a right. It's blackmail with a bow. I blinked. What? She nodded. That house of yours. You were planning to give it to them, weren't you? I thought, maybe if I did, they'd finally... I stopped myself. The thought sounded pathetic now. Clarice leaned in. You gave up a New York job offer to care for your dad when he had surgery. Sold your gold necklace to pay off his hospital bills. If they don't see that, they never will. We sat there, plates half finished, and something settled in me. It wasn't anger, not anymore. It was clarity. Later that night, back home, I opened the drawer in my hallway desk. The file folder was still there, labeled Transfer Property Title. I had printed the documents weeks ago, just in case. My hands didn't shake this time. I carried them to the fireplace and struck a match. The flame caught slow, then quickened, curling the edges, turning years of guilt into smoke. This house won't be my guilt offering anymore. The embers still glowed in the fireplace when I noticed the envelope sticking out from under my door. No return address, just my name typed in bold. I opened it with a steak knife from the kitchen drawer, expecting junk mail. Instead, it was a notification from the county records office. Notice of preliminary title transfer processing, Venus Miller. My heart dropped. I hadn't submitted anything. I burned the documents. Literally. I grabbed my phone and called Clarice. You remember that folder I told you about? I torched it. So why would they send that? She asked, instantly alert. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. The next morning, I dressed like I had somewhere important to be, because I did. Randall's law office hadn't changed in years. Same fern dying in the corner. Same smug receptionist with too much lip liner. She smiled without recognition when I asked to review my previous request. Of course, let me pull it up, she said, and a few minutes later she slid a printed PDF across the counter. We still have this draft on file. My eyes caught the signature at the bottom. Mine, but not. It was close enough for someone to believe it, but I knew my own loop, the way my V always curved like a checkmark. This one was a lie, a digital imitation. Randall walked out from his office, clearly surprised to see me. Venus, I was going to call you. Your dad mentioned you were on board, but you'd just been emotional last time we spoke. Maybe forgot. I never signed this, I said flatly. His mouth opened and shut. Arthur said, I don't care what he said. I walked out without another word. The cold wind bit through my coat, but I welcomed it. It kept me sharp. At home, I pulled out an old file box, one that used to belong to Mom. Inside were letters, birth certificates, even old bills paid by hand. And at the bottom, tucked in a corner, her signature on a will. Slanted, steady, and unmistakably hers. But I remembered seeing a version of that same signature years ago, on a refinance paper, only it wasn't quite right. Dad had forged before. Why wouldn't he forge mine? This wasn't just manipulation. This was theft. I picked up my phone, scrolled past all the names that no longer meant anything, and tapped the one I'd saved months ago. Julian Marks, attorney at law. I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun broke through the blinds, too pale to warm anything. My phone was still in my hand when I texted Arthur. Sunrise Diner, 9 a.m., don't bring her. The diner hadn't changed. Same cracked leather booths, same smell of burnt toast and overbrewed coffee. It was where he used to take me after softball games, before everything got complicated, before Diana. He walked in a few minutes late. Hesitant. No eye contact at first. Just a stiff nod and a cleared throat before he slid into the seat across from me. I figured you'd be mad, he said, reaching for the menu like this was any other breakfast. I didn't respond. I placed a manila envelope on the table instead. Inside, the printout from Randall's office. He didn't open it. Didn't have to. I didn't ask you to do that, I said flatly. You went behind my back. Arthur sighed, then folded his hands. You're being dramatic, Venus. Randall misunderstood. Cut the act, I snapped. My signature was forged. Yours too, I'm guessing. Or was that Diana's idea? His jaw twitched. Diana's been trying to keep things stable. She's not the issue. You are. You stood there on Thanksgiving and let her humiliate me. Then this? This was your idea of family? He leaned back, arms crossed. You don't know the pressure we're under. I stared him down. You mean the pressure to keep up appearances while draining your daughter's inheritance behind her back? He didn't answer. I sold my necklace to pay your medical bills. Turned down a promotion to stay here when you could barely walk. I bent over backwards to make you feel taken care of. And I didn't think you'd understand. No, you didn't think I'd fight back. The waitress came by, sensing the tension, and left without saying a word. I stood up, voice calm but cold. If either of you come near my house again, I'll call the police. You'll be treated like any other trespasser. I mean that. He looked up at me, something flickering behind his eyes. Guilt? Regret? I couldn't tell. You're not the daughter I raised, he muttered. I leaned down, met his eyes. Good. That girl would have let this go. By the third day, I'd almost convinced myself the worst had passed. That maybe, just maybe, Arthur would back down, let it die quietly like all his other bad decisions. Then the envelope came. A knock at the door, a polite smile from a courier, and a crisp white envelope with my name in block letters. I signed for it, closed the door, and stood there a moment, fingers tight against the paper like it might burn. It nearly did. Formal request for property division, it read. In accordance with prior oral agreements and contributions to household stability. Legalese soaked in cheap perfume. I called Julian. He didn't even sound surprised. It's nothing binding, just an intimidation tactic. They're drawing first blood. I exhaled, tried to laugh, failed. Of course they are. Later that afternoon, Clarice sent me a screenshot. A public Facebook post. Arthur's name front and center. His profile picture still the same one from my graduation. Some children forget who raised them, the post began. Some think property matters more than love. I never thought I'd be ashamed of my own blood, but here we are. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. The comments came fast. Old neighbors, distant cousins. So sorry, Arthur. That's heartbreaking. What a shame. I stared at the screen until the words stopped meaning anything. Closed the app, powered off the phone. Later that evening, I met Julian at his office. We sat across a long table, a stack of folders between us. I need everything, he said. Title deeds, hospital records, receipts, whatever you have. I already sorted them, I said, pulling a binder from my bag. Indexed, labeled. I even saved the texts. Julian smiled. You've done half my job already. No, I said, voice low but steady. I'm doing the part where I stop playing nice. That night, the Christmas lights outside twinkled across the street. My house stayed dark. They wanted to test if I'd break. I'm about to show them what breaking point really looks like. The rain hadn't stopped. A gray drizzle had soaked the porch and blurred the window panes, but I barely noticed. I sat cross-legged on the floor, scanning a spreadsheet of bank transfers and repair costs. Legal prep wasn't glamorous, but I wasn't in this for drama. I was in it to win. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Arthur, drenched, holding something thick in his hand. I pressed the intercom. You're not welcome here. I'm not here to fight, he said, voice muffled. Just talk. I didn't answer. After a long pause, I unlocked the top latch but kept the chain in place. The door creaked open an inch. He held out a manila folder. You should read this. I took it through the gap. Inside, photos of Clarice and me at her office, walking, talking, dated, time-stamped, and a draft of a civil claim accusing her of coercion and defamation. You're going after her? I asked, teeth clenched. She manipulated you, Arthur said, tone smug. This is still my family, not hers. I closed the folder, slid it back out to him. You're desperate. His smile faltered. You've made this ugly. I unlatched the chain, stepped outside. The cold slapped me, but I didn't flinch. Try it, I said. But know this. If you go after Clarice again, I won't just defend myself. I'll expose every lie you've ever told. In court. In public. Under oath. His jaw tightened. For a second, he almost looked afraid. Then he turned and walked down the steps. That night, as I finished updating the case file for Julian, my phone rang. His voice was brisk. They filed. It's real. But now, it's our turn. The next 2 days passed like sand slipping through my fingers. Quiet, deceptive, heavy. I poured everything into prep with Julian. But when Clarice canceled lunch the second time in a week, my stomach tightened. She didn't give a reason, just a short text. Rain check. Something was off. Her messages were shorter, colder. I told myself not to panic, not to assume. But when Nina called out of the blue, her voice low and cautious, I knew I hadn't imagined it. Venus. I wasn't going to say anything, but I saw Diana at the Mariner's Inn. She was meeting Clarice. I stopped breathing. You're sure? I was there for coffee. I saw them hug. Later that evening, I drove to the office, rain slicing sideways across the windshield. I couldn't sit still. Not after hearing that. Not after everything we'd survived. Then the call came. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, dread, anger, made me swipe right. Venus, it's Randall. Don't hang up. I didn't speak. They're planning something. Arthur, he's pushing for a mental fitness motion. Using the past few months, your medication, everything. My heart dropped. What? He's using Clarice to support it. Her affidavit, if she signs it, says you've been unstable, that she was trying to protect you from yourself. That's a lie. I know, but they're setting the trap. I hung up and stared at the phone. Then I grabbed my flash drive, my evidence folder, and drove to Julian's. When he looked up, I didn't waste a word. I dropped it all on the table. We need to go public. I'm done waiting for their next move. Julian didn't blink when I said it. He just nodded once and opened his laptop. Then we begin with the truth, on your terms. Within 48 hours, I was seated across from a reporter in a modest studio, microphone clipped to my collar, the bright lights heating my skin. I'm not here for pity, I said, staring into the lens. I'm here because silence never protected me. They ran the segment that night, 10 minutes of truth set against old photographs, snippets of court filings, and a few shots of the beach house my parents now pretended never mattered to them. The voiceover ended with me saying, "Love shouldn't cost your dignity." The response was immediate. My inbox flooded. Neighbors, strangers, even old high school teachers wrote to say they believed me, that they saw me. Court came 2 days later. The room was packed. Diana sat stiff beside Arthur, both dressed in their best illusion of poise. Clarice was absent, but her retraction was submitted. She'd changed her mind at the 11th hour. Julian's case was airtight. He presented emails, forged signatures, hidden accounts. I sat silent, eyes forward, heart steady. The judge ruled in my favor. The house, the accounts, the legal claims. They were all mine, uncontested and final. Afterward, the media surged. I walked past them all. I had no more to prove. That night, Clarice sent one message. I'm sorry, I froze. I read it once, then deleted it. Some silences don't need answers. At home, I poured a glass of wine and watched the tide on the news ticker. Waves crashing on a beach I hadn't visited since Mom passed. I closed my eyes. When I pulled into my driveway later that evening, the sky a smudge of orange and gray, his silhouette was already there, leaning against the hood of his car like the last ghost who refused to leave. Arthur didn't move, and neither did I. I didn't honk. I didn't get out. I just watched him from the car, my fingers resting on the steering wheel like they knew this moment would come. Snow had started falling, light, hesitant flakes dusting his shoulders. After a while, he tapped twice on the hood, then walked to my door. I cracked it open. What do you want? Arthur's eyes were red, maybe from the cold, maybe not. I'm not here to fight, he said. Can I come in? I led him into the entryway, no farther. The air between us was thicker than any snowstorm. He glanced around the house, then at me. I thought I was protecting something. A legacy. I folded my arms. You weren't. You were hiding behind it. He nodded slowly. You're right. I destroyed more than I saved. You destroyed your daughter's trust. That's not the same thing. We stood in silence. He didn't ask to be forgiven. Maybe he knew better now. I didn't know how to love you without controlling you, he finally said. You never tried. He looked down. The snow on his shoulders had melted. You're leaving? In the spring, I said. This house holds too much grief. I want a clean start. Arthur's mouth twitched, like he wanted to say something else, but all he did was nod. Then he stepped back outside. I didn't watch him go. I closed the door, locked it, and turned off the porch light. The next morning, I drove to the beach. Wind whipped at my coat as I stepped out, boots crunching snow-mixed sand. I stood facing the ocean, waves slow and steady, like they knew I needed them. Closure doesn't feel like justice. It feels like standing still after years of running. And maybe, for the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was choosing. Before we wrap up, I want to share something personal, something I hope stays with you long after this story ends. If there's one truth I've learned through all this, it's this. You don't owe your peace to anyone who builds their love on conditions. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who tell the truth, who hold your hand, even when the world doesn't. And walking away from pain, even if it's from the people who raised you, is not betrayal. It's survival. It's self-respect. I used to believe that keeping quiet made me strong, but real strength? It's in setting boundaries. It's in choosing healing over history. And yes, it's terrifying, but it's also freeing. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose yourself, even if it meant letting go of someone you once loved? What would you say to someone who's scared to walk away from a toxic family tie? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story touched something inside you, let me know by commenting 1 or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't resonate, I still want to hear your thoughts. Tell me why and where you're tuning in from. Your voice matters here. If you found any truth, strength, or inspiration in this video, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. More stories, more healing, more truth. Thanks for being here. And remember, you are never too much and you never have to shrink to be loved.